400 meters of vertical void. That is the only distance between a sleeping bag and the valley floor. This is not a review of exotic hospitality. This is an analysis of material limits at the edge of the troposphere. We are suspended at the height of a 100-story skyscraper, anchored to a granite face by aerospace aluminum and high-resistance polycarbonate. The transparency triggers immediate fear overloads. Your brain signals danger, but the engineering demands trust. Can a transparent capsule truly isolate a human body from a terminal fall? We leave the safety of the cliff edge, 400 meters above the abyss. That is the equivalent of hanging from the antenna of the Empire State Building. 130 floors of empty air separate your spine from the Urubamba River below. This is not a hotel room. It is a sealed survival module clamped to a sheer granite face. The engineering priority here is not comfort, it is structural integrity. The frame utilizes aerospace-grade aluminum. It is lightweight, immune to corrosion, and rigid enough to withstand gale-force winds without warping. The transparency comes from high-resistance polycarbonate. Glass would be a death sentence here. Polycarbonate absorbs impact and flexes under pressure. 12 anchors are driven deep into the mountain's bedrock. Steel cables tension the capsule against the cliff. The wind whistles around the aerodynamic shell. You can feel the floor vibrate beneath your boots. A subtle tremor. It is the friction of the mounting system fighting the updraft. Each anchor point is rated to hold 20 tons. The capsule weighs less than 1. The safety margin is absolute. Inside, the space is 7.5 meters long, a compressed habitat with 4 beds and a solar-powered sanitation system. But looking out, the scale distorts reality. As the sun drops behind the Andes, the wind finally stops. The valley floor disappears into darkness. Absolute silence. From the thin air of the Andes, we descend into density. The medium changes from void to heavy matter. Deep within Chile's Huilo Huilo Biological Reserve, architecture mimics geology. The Montaña Mágica Lodge is a man-made cone constructed from local volcanic rock. The engineering focus here shifts from structural tension to hydrodynamics. A continuous cascade erupts from the summit. Not lava, but glacial water. The flow engulfs the structure. This liquid sheath serves a functional purpose. It irrigates a living skin of moss and ferns, binding the stone facade with organic roots. Simultaneously, the falling water acts as a dynamic insulator. It regulates internal temperature and creates a heavy acoustic shield. Access requires navigating a swinging rope bridge, but the interior is solid mass. Native beech timber lines the core. The constant roar of the exterior waterfall drowns out the forest, creating a white noise vacuum inside the 9 guest rooms. Total isolation. The price for total immersion in this hydrodynamic shell is roughly $260 per night. While the Chilean jungle swallows the architecture physically, the Swedish taiga erases it optically. Deep in the Harads forest, a geometric anomaly hangs suspended, a cube, 4 meters high, 4 meters wide. The entire mass relies on a single centennial pine trunk. An aluminum frame clamps around the tree, distributing tons of weight without strangling the living phloem. But the engineering marvel here is not structural, it is a masterpiece of light physics. The facade is clad in mirrored glass that reflects the surroundings with 100% fidelity. It does not blend in, it disappears. Perfect camouflage creates a deadly kinetic problem. For a bird flying at 50 kilometers per hour, a mirror is indistinguishable from open sky. The solution lies in the invisible spectrum. Engineers applied a specialized infrared film to the glazing. Sunlight hits the pane. To the human retina, the cube remains a perfect invisible mirror. But to an avian eye, the walls glow with a distinct, solid warning color. A bird approaches the reflection. It sees the infrared signal. It swerves. The glass remains cold to the touch, a phantom in the freezing air. Outside, the structure is a void. Inside, the contrast is absolute. You cross a 12-meter rope bridge into a sanctuary of warm, blonde birch plywood. It is a thermal fortress against the Arctic Circle, hiding a Scandinavian luxury suite inside a visual glitch. The cost for this total optical disappearance is approximately $600 per night. In the Swedish taiga, the architecture attempts to disappear, but in Nairobi, the wilderness simply walks through the front door. This is 1932 preserved in stone, a Scottish hunting lodge sitting on 12 hectares of private sanctuary. But the purpose of this structure has inverted over 9 decades. It is no longer a shelter for the hunter, it is a fortress for the hunted. The resident is the Rothschild's giraffe, a biological skyscraper, 5 meters of vertical reach. To accommodate a guest weighing 1,000 kilograms, the building's envelope requires specific adaptations. Standard fenestration fails here. The mansion utilizes reinforced, oversized apertures positioned well above human eye level. The architecture forces a change in perspective. The windows are not for looking out. They are for letting the outside in. This is active conservation disguised as luxury. The facility operates as a breeding center for a subspecies once pushed to the brink of extinction. Revenue funds the African Fund for Endangered Wildlife. The price for this ethical symbiosis creates a high barrier to entry. 1,100 euros per person per night. The investment secures a front row seat to an interspecies breach. The boundary dissolves at dawn. A massive head pushes through the open casement frame. From organic symbiosis with giraffes in Kenya to a concrete hallucination in China, in Hubei province, 3 colorful giants rise 41.6 meters against the gray sky. That is the height of a 14-story apartment block. This is the Tianzi Hotel. It holds the Guinness World Record for the largest figurative building on Earth. Fu, Lu, and Shou. Prosperity, fortune, and longevity. But this is not a monument. It is a habitable shell. The architecture is absolute. To check in, guests do not pass through a revolving door. They must walk directly into the massive left foot of the god of prosperity. Inside, the geometry of the rooms surrenders to the external sculpture. The vibrant patterns on the divine robes are actually camouflage. They hide the windows of 10 floors of guest rooms. The engineering reaches its peak in the hand of the god Shou. He holds the peach of immortality. Inside this spherical fruit lies the hotel's most exclusive suite. It is a surreal existence. Sleeping inside a myth. While the price is modest, the scale is overwhelming. Form does not follow function here. Form dominates it. High above the traffic, a guest looks out through a gap in the painted porcelain face. The world below is seen through the eyes of a god. While Chinese gods are frozen in concrete, Balinese engineering relies on extreme flexibility. Bamboo Indah is not a decorative resort. It is a masterclass in organic structural mechanics. The primary building material is Dendrocalamus asper, a giant bamboo species with a tensile strength of 28,000 pounds per square inch. That is higher than mild steel. In a seismic zone, rigidity is a death sentence. Concrete snaps, bamboo bends. The architecture utilizes this elasticity to survive earthquakes that level traditional masonry. A close look at the structural nodes reveals complex lashing techniques that allow the frame to articulate. The massive stems creak in the tropical wind, absorbing kinetic energy rather than resisting it. Inside the moon house, the floor disappears. Plates of tempered glass replace hardwood, suspending guests directly above a koi pond. The sound of running water vibrates through the soles of your feet. This lacks mechanical cooling. The curved roof lines capture the Venturi effect, accelerating the breeze and venting heat instantly. Zero electricity for air conditioning. This complex serves as a living laboratory for structural stability. The tropics allow walls to breathe, but the Arctic requires the creation of a hermetic shield. 250 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, the environment acts as a predator. Outside, the air drops to minus 30 degrees Celsius. At this extreme, moisture turns to ice instantly. But inside the Kokslautenen igloos, the thermometer reads a steady 20 degrees. This survival is powered by specialized thermal glass technology. Standard glazing would frost over in seconds, blinding the occupants. Here, an electrically heated layer within the composite glass prevents condensation and melts snow on contact. An invisible system of radiators maintains the barrier, a temperature delta of 50 degrees. Life on one side, lethal freeze on the other, separated by a transparent shell. While the resort markets ice chapels and smoke saunas, the engineering is the true attraction. The glass remains perfectly clear against the pitch-black polar night. No wind noise penetrates the seal, just the silent green light dancing over the curve of the dome. Glass protects from frost, but to stop an invasion fleet, you need granite. In the churning gray waters of the Solent Strait, a dark geometric shape breaks the horizon. This is no man's land fort. Commissioned during the height of Victorian paranoia in the 1860s, this structure was never meant to welcome guests. It was built to kill French ironclads. The engineering is a study in brute force. Divers laid the foundations 20 feet below the surface, creating an artificial island capable of supporting thousands of tons of ordnance. Where tourists now sleep in 22 luxury suites, streets, military blueprints show the ghost of a lethal machine. The layout is circular, efficient, a central lighthouse guided friendly ships, while the perimeter bristled with 49 cannon emplacements. Superimpose the schematics of 12-ton rifled muzzle loaders over the modern bedroom furniture. The scale of the defense becomes suffocating. Today, the enemy is the weather. When a winter storm hits the channel, waves slam into the base with the kinetic energy of a freight train. The sound outside is deafening. Inside, the silence is absolute. The granite absorbs the shockwave completely. Champagne glasses on the table do not even tremble. The walls were designed to shrug off artillery fire, effectively creating a shell with the density of a modern nuclear bunker. You are not just on an island, you are inside a fortress that defies the Atlantic. Safety here is measured by the 5 meters of armored rock between your bed and the raging ocean. We leave the artificial island behind to dig into rock that remembers the dinosaurs. Welcome to the vertical limit of Farmington, New Mexico. To enter, you must descend. 21 meters of solid earth separate the living quarters from the surface. This residence was not assembled, it was detonated. Precision explosives and heavy drilling carved this 150 square meter void directly into the Ojo Alamo sandstone formation. The luxury amenities and full kitchen are merely a thin veneer over the geology. While the desert outside swings from scorching heat to freezing nights, the interior remains mathematically static. The massive thermal inertia of the mountain absorbs energy during the day and releases it slowly at night, locking the temperature between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius year-round. No air conditioning required. The air holds the dry, mineral scent of crushed stone and total isolation. Absolute silence. But how does one maintain a modern life inside a solid monolith? You are a temporary guest enclosed by 65 million years of geological history. If ancient humans sought protection inside the rock, modern engineering hangs multi-ton metal above it. A retired Boeing 737 sits perched 150 meters above the roaring Indian Ocean. From the beach below, the 30-ton airliner looks like a discarded toy teetering on the edge of the Nyang Yang cliffs. Forget the Italian marble lining the fuselage or the stone jacuzzi replacing the pilot's seat. The true marvel here is not the decor, but the logistics. To reach this altitude, the aircraft was sliced into segments like a model kit. Flatbed trucks hauled the aluminum carcass through Bali's narrow, winding jungle roads. Cranes reassembled the puzzle on the brink of the void. The structural challenge is massive. An airplane is designed to generate lift. At this height, coastal updrafts constantly try to make the villa fly again. To fight these aerodynamics, the fuselage rests on a custom cradle of reinforced concrete. Steel anchors drill deep into the limestone bedrock, locking the dynamic airframe to the static cliff. The starboard wing is no longer a fuel tank, but a terrace cantilevering over the drop. Salt spray coats the cockpit windows as a gust of wind slams against the aluminum hull. While the previous fuselage was a relic of the past, this structure is built from the materials of the future. At an altitude of 2,835 meters, the Bivacco Gervasuti clings to the granite face of the Freybuze Glacier. It is an alien object in a hostile world. The hull is not made of wood or stone. It is a modular capsule constructed from fiberglass and high-performance sandwich panels, a direct technological descendant of the modules found on the International Space Station. 30 square meters of insulated safety. Outside, the wind screams at 100 kilometers per hour. Inside, a dedicated computer system and 12 bunks run silently on self-generated solar power. The design solves a fatal problem of alpine architecture. The entire unit cantilevers over the abyss, hanging over the sheer drop to prevent snowdrifts from burying the roof. Staying here costs nothing in currency, but the path to the entrance requires navigating a lethal field of glacial crevasses. From the desperate survivalism of the Alps, the focus shifts to industrial isolation in the Norwegian wilderness. The VIP shelter is not built on site. It is a machine for living, delivered as a single 55 square meter unit. This is the logic of the assembly line applied to architecture. A crane lowers the structure into the forest, a foreign object of galvanized steel and glass. The tactile experience is purely synthetic. The cold smoothness of the black steel frame contrasts with the organic chaos of the surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling glazing creates a visual connection, but the engineering enforces total separation. The steel grid is rigid enough to carry the crushing load of wet Nordic snow without flexing a millimeter. A metal box in the Arctic should be a freezer. Here, the engineering battle is fought in the walls. 3 millimeters of steel skin protect 300 millimeters of high-density insulation. The cold stays out, the heat stays in. Outside, the storm generates 100 decibels of noise. Inside, the reading is 0. From the permanent rigidity of steel, we shift to the ephemeral nature of frozen water. In the shadow of the Matterhorn, the construction material is not delivered by truck, it falls from the sky. Engineers face a temporal paradox, building a structure designed to vanish. Giant pneumatic balloons serve as molds for 3,000 tons of compacted snow. Once the snow settles, the balloons are deflated and removed, leaving behind a self-supporting shell. Why doesn't a roof weighing as much as a locomotive crush the sleeper? The secret lies in the catenary arch. Gravity pushes the weight downward, but the curved geometry distributes the load along the walls, compressing the snow grains closer together rather than breaking them apart. This represents the physics of sintering. Loose powder transforms into a structural solid capable of bearing immense pressure. Microscopic air pockets are the key to survival. A macro view of the wall reveals a lattice of ice crystals trapping millions of tiny bubbles. This dead air acts as a high-efficiency thermal barrier. Outside, the alpine wind chill drops to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Inside, the thermodynamics of the bubble matrix hold the ambient temperature at a steady 0. The walls do not generate heat, they refuse to let it escape. The sensory experience is one of suspended animation. The only sound is the crunch of boots on the packed floor. Breath creates rhythmic clouds of vapor in the stillness. Guests sleep on blocks of harvested river ice, separated from hypothermia by heavy reindeer hides and expedition-grade sleeping bags. But thermodynamics eventually wins. As the vernal equinox approaches, the structural bonds weaken and the architecture returns to the water table. The maximum lifespan of this hotel is 100 days. From the ephemeral fragility of ice, we shift to the absolute permanence of the Earth's crust. We are no longer building on the land, we are building into it. In the dense jungles of Indonesia, the architecture becomes subtractive. Engineers do not add material here, they remove it. It is a technological return to the Paleolithic cave, executed with modern precision. A narrow passage cuts through the topsoil. The air grows heavy. The sharp smell of wet earth and ancient mineral fills the lungs. While the jungle outside boils at 30 degrees Celsius, the interior remains naturally tempered. The volcanic rock acts as a massive thermal battery. Geothermal ventilation regulates the microclimate without a single kilowatt of air conditioning. The silence is physical. Millions of tons of surrounding basalt dampen the chaotic noise of the rainforest, creating a total vacuum of sound. A projector casts light against the raw stone, but the technology is secondary. The true engineering feat is using the planet itself as the structural frame. No steel, no concrete. We leave the surface behind and begin the final descent into the depth. Rising from the geothermal depths marks the end of this descent. We have traced the evolution of shelter from the recycled aluminum carcass of a Boeing 727 to the sub-zero physics of an ice vault. The trajectory is clear. Modern architecture does not fight the biosphere, it hacks it. We turn industrial waste into luxury and solid bedrock into acoustic chambers. Even the visuals in this report reflect that technological leap. To reconstruct these isolated coordinates with maximum fidelity, we utilize generative artificial intelligence and advanced simulations. The line between the built environment and the wild is gone. From a cockpit suspended in the canopy to a stone room deep underground, which extreme frontier would you choose for a single night?